Hello and welcome to the Ultra Dad podcast. I'm your host, Nick McCashin, and today we have a very special guest. I've been super excited to speak to him. He has 5 children, and he didn't start marathon running till he was 53 years young. He's now turned the ripe age of 60, and he's getting faster as he goes. He's run 20 ultra marathons now, ranging from 50 kilometers to 185 kilometers. And I'm very pleased to announce it's Roger Peppiette. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I've been super excited since we caught up with coffee the other morning. I guess where I'd really love to start is, why did you start running at the age of 53? I know you've probably run when you were younger and that, but tell us what happened around the 53 years.
Oh, that's so. Yes, so you're right. Yeah, I've always had done a bit of running back. It's kind of come and gone. I ran when I was a kid, at school, things like that. Never ran any particularly long distances. So, the most I ever did was like half marathons here and there before. And then got into my 50s. I was never that excited about the thought of doing marathons. It always seemed like it was going to be just painful for too long. And then actually what happened was a couple of I have some grown-up kids and a young one, and my couple of my grown-up kids were keen to do marathons and tick that box of doing it. So I joined a marathon with them, Edinburgh Marathon, back in 2017. So I signed up with them to do that as the first go at that distance, and actually just surprised myself by enjoying it. Enjoyed the process of it. And I think the thing that I realized in training for that made it more enjoyable was suddenly realizing you don't actually have to go flat out all the time. You can actually, if you just slow down a bit, it's actually quite enjoyable.
Nice one.
It was a bit of a revelation that, it wasn't that difficult to work out. It took me a long time. But yeah, so I did it 53 with son and daughter. Just never looked back from that, and then switched to ultra marathons. Far happier doing off-road ultras than on-road marathons.
Brilliant. So is that the ultras? Is there any particular reason you enjoy that over the road?
I think actually, yeah. I think so. Oddly enough, in my training plan for Edinburgh Marathon, I actually did a 50k ultra, maybe like a month beforehand. Because it was here. It was in North Berwick. There was the John Muir Way Ultra was, comes past your house. It's almost compulsory to do it, right? If it's a... so I signed up to do that, and then realized actually that the off-road ultras like that are quite different. You're not looking at your watch the whole time. You're not trying to get a PB. All those things that make the road marathons hard, where you're trying to follow a certain pace and, do better than last time. Doesn't happen in the off-road ultra, because it depends on the wind or the mud or the rain or anything else. And they're sociable. Was the thing I realized. Road marathons, nobody's talking to each other, from the word go. They're all just looking at their garments. And I found right away that the off-road ultras like that are actually just really sociable. It's you can spend hours chatting to people before you actually have to get on with any really hard work.
Yeah, when I did my ultra, you run with someone for a wee way and you're chatting to them all the way, and they're really happy to chat with them. Then you say, "I'll see you later," and they have a break, and then they pass you not so long afterwards. Is that sort of the social element, or are you talking more afterwards in the pub?
No, it's exactly that. But it's really, I find it quite fascinating. You meet different people. So actually, the John Muir Way Ultra was on again. It was that was 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, whatever. So I ran that one again. Favorite local race, and it went exactly like that. So you head off at the start. Within, let's say, the first kilometer, you find out who's running the same pace at you. And I got in step with somebody else, and basically just ran and chatted with this young woman until about 42 kilometers. So we basically spent about over 3 hours together, just just learning about somebody else, having a chat, but just holding steady pace the whole way until we got to a hill, and then she dropped me.
What did you talk about?
It's just a little bit about, what you do. Turns out she's really a very good triathlete, Ironman triathlete, who was doing a 50K ultra as a training run, basically. So,
Wow.
But she was really, really solid, but, so yeah, it's a bit of that and a bit of talking about, it just goes from bits to, talk about your family, talk about your dogs, talk about what, asking people what they do for a living, that sort of thing. And you just, finding out about other people. You don't get many opportunities in your normal life to just talk to somebody for hours about that. And it's a really strange thing because you're talking with them like that, but you're not looking at them. Because you're either side by side or you're one behind the other, that sort of thing. It's a unique way to find out about somebody. And then
for sure.
And at the end of it, you kind of, you move off. Like as you said, it kind of, at some point it breaks up for different reasons. Like say we got to this long hill and she just pulled away from me and I wasn't going to keep up. And there's no feeling in that of thinking, shit, that's not, that's rude. She's gone off and ditched me after 40 kilometers together. You just feel quite happy for her, thinking, okay, there you go. You're on form, go smash it. Well, she did. I think she finished third overall, or third in the women's. So,
wow. Whereabouts did you place?
I was like 30th or something, I think. So, not my best in that event, but just actually kind of cracked a bit in the last few kilometers. But not too badly. But I love it. It's a great ride.
Well done. Well done on the 30th, anyway.
Yeah, the social aspect of that is I love that bit. So. And then you collect those people in your Strava. They're on your Strava list forever. People that you only met once in an ultra, and talked to for a while. They're just your pals that you watch out for later, and you probably never see them again. So,
yeah, for sure. You could just keep an eye on their Strava times and things and see how they go down.
Yeah,
brilliant. Well, tell us a little bit about your family then, and what does your wife think of you running all these ultras, being 60 years old?
I think she she's not listening. She's not listening. No, I think she's very supportive of that. She comes along to some, and other ones she doesn't. We've got a young daughter here who's 12 at home, so it fits around that a little bit. I think she's quite supportive of that. She's sometimes if I suggest things, because you're always looking for bigger challenges. When I think about bigger next challenges or what you're going to do. There's sometimes I look at, suggest possible races and she'll raise my eyebrow and think, do you think that's safe? That's the first time. And it's more that, she's not worried to get ready. She just think it's just that natural concern. Like the first time I tried a 24-hour race last year and she was looking at that thinking, well, is that really smart? And I said, yeah, it is, because it's a 24-hour loop. You're never more than 3 or 4 miles from home base. It's not like you're out in the wilderness on your own risking getting lost. So if I suggested one of those, every time I bring up spine race as a possible, that gets nixed. So that's
tell us a little bit about the 24-hour race.
Oh, that was the Glenmore. So Glenmore 24, which is a loop ultra. If for anybody who's interested in, any of you guys who are interested in trying something like that, it is actually a fantastic experience though. So they have a 12-hour and a 24-hour race loop ultra in the forest, and they're the format where you basically you start at home base, you have a campsite there, and you start at noon on Saturday, and you either finish at midnight on Saturday or you keep on going till noon on Sunday and just do as many laps as you can. It's just how much distance can you cover. But it's so, it sounds quite daunting, but it's the easiest possible way to do that, because you're never more than, you're back at your campsite, having a cup of tea every hour if you feel like it, so.
Yeah. Actually, how many laps?
Oh, I forget how many laps it was in the end. I think I covered 185 kilometers in that time. But what you see actually in those are fascinating, because the mix of a range of people and know something. I was, I think, fifth in the end overall at that distance. But the guy who won it was so far ahead, he was in a different county. He was I think he was 50 kilometers ahead of me.
Wow.
You get people at that end who are just, who can do like 5-minute kilometers all day. And then there's people at the other end who are, you might look at and think they don't even look like runner, but they're just in that. There's an ultramarathon community doing those kind of races who are, just, going around at their own pace, walking bits, running bits, not trying to go flat out, just trying to cover a certain amount of time. And they're really sociable. You see people all the time, they're really sociable. If anybody has that, and anybody has that goal of thinking, I want to run 50 kilometers or I want to run 60 kilometers, and you're scared of entering a race and thinking you might not get to the end, actually a 12-hour ultra like that is the way to do it, because you've got all day.
Yeah.
You're doing it in loops. You could stop for an hour and have a rest. You could have an afternoon nap and then get going again and still cover the distance that you set out to do. As long as you do it within that time.
During that 24-hour period, did you sleep at all?
No. I think actually you can get away with it like that. I was doing like just quick. It's like pit stops. You're almost doing like a Formula One pit stop where you come round to the campsite every 45 minutes and you swing in, you grab a drink, you grab some food, you go to the bathroom, whatever else, have a cup of tea, and then get going again. But you can stop and I know some guys who did that. I know one of my friends who got to like 1 a.m. and then just went to bed for a while, got in the camper van, slept for 6 hours, got up, had some breakfast, and got going again. And did another half marathon's worth in the morning once he was feeling better. But yeah, you can do it different ways.
It sounds like maybe a race that I might enjoy. I mean, I'm not the most fastest or even your typical runner. I've come from the rugby background, and I'm quite a lot bigger than a lot of runners. I'm not slight and fast and lean, but I guess that's where I was drawn to the ultras, that I could just tick along and get it done. And there was more of a internal grit that needed to get through. So, I mean, it sounds like an event that I might enjoy. You
totally would. You absolutely would. Because, like I say, and you can, that is one that you can actually do with families, quite easily, because you basically go there and you set up a campsite, you set up in your tent or your camper van in a field, and there's lots of people there who have their kids around, and they're just, they're just cheering on every hour as you come round, or and thinking, what the hell is Dad doing there? There he goes again, So if you did the 24, they would just they go to bed, stop supporting you for a while, and then they have the dinner, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and they're running around. There's Dad. He's still going around in circles.
I'd be worried that my 5-year-old would want to keep running with me the whole time.
Yeah, well, that would tire him out. That would get him to bed at night, right?
Yeah, he did the park run at Archerfield on the weekend. It was only 2 kilometers. But did your family take part in that one with you, or was it yourself that went over?
They have not done that with me. They've done some other ones with me before. So my older kids, the grown-up kids, one of them came to support me on that once, so he came along to just be the support guy in the campsite. They haven't run that one with me before. They've run some other ones, but they're, so one of my boys in particular has taken to marathon running, but he's really focused on road running. He's in that younger guy. I want to do the PB on a road marathon. I want to do all the marathon major, and I kind of go along with that. To me, the only reason I do road marathons is to go and do stuff with him.
Yeah, you've got a couple coming up with him, you said.
We've got Boston Marathon coming up next month. That's going to be exciting.
Nice.
I've done that a couple of times before. Love that. It's just amazing. And then we're going to Berlin in September. So we're going to tick off 2 this year.
Brilliant. Does that give you enough time for him to do his PBs, or is he aiming for PBs for both? Or
I think he's aiming for a PB in Boston, which I think is ambitious because it's too hilly, but he'll have enough time to recover. I've seen it. I've seen what he's been doing in training. It's I don't think that's I'm concerned for him. It's way too fast. Way too.
Well, he might surprise you. He might surprise you.
Well, he's done that every time so far. He's surprised me. So yeah.
Remind me about Boston. Tell me a little bit about that. You said, I think you mentioned to me, was it 50,000 or 60,000 people?
No, that one's I think is about 30,000, something like that order. It's about 30. Yeah, it's not the biggest from that. It's unique because I think this is 120 something a year they've been running it, which I was taken aback at that. I didn't know people had been running like marathons for fun 100 years ago. It doesn't sound like a likely thing, but it's amazing. So I've done it a couple of times before. It's just amazing. It's a point to point. They still follow the same course they always did. So they bus you 26 miles out of Boston and you run home. So it's not like a more typical city marathon where you're going around the sites of London or Berlin or something else. It's literally, you're out in the sticks and then you run back to Boston, and then you either get the wind with you all the way or against you all the way. So I've had both.
Wow. So is that, you have to qualify? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, you do. You have to qualify. Awesome. But it's another interesting one for any of your guys following. So most of the field is people who've qualified on time. So 80% of the places are given up to people who qualify on time. So like 24,000 people have qualified, but they split it into little age categories. Every 5 years, you have a different qualifying time. Well, I'm lucky that I made it into the 60 plus category this year, and I've just scraped in.
Just scraped in. You're quite fast, aren't you?
Well, I think so. I think to get in as a 60, you had to be under 3 hours 30 or something. You have to run a marathon somewhere else, within the year before that, and you have to be under 3:30. And I think I had a 3:20 something in Barcelona last year. So you have to be,
wow. Amazing.
And then it's tougher if you're on if you're in the under 40s, it's pretty harsh. So I think you have to be 2:55 or better or something like that. So,
yeah. Just to put that in context for you, the listener, I ran a marathon, my first marathon, not particularly well, and I didn't train particularly well. I must add that in, but I did a 4 hour 26. So Roger's 20 years older than me, and he beat me by an hour.
Well, I'll give you the context, and then when you get there. Actually, the last time I did it when I was in the 55 plus category a few years ago, and got there feeling quite pleased with myself. I got there, and then you realize you're absolutely nowhere in that race, even in your category. I think I placed like 200th in the 55 plus male category. Absolutely nowhere.
Wow.
Which is great. I mean, I love that. There's always somebody around you that is faster. Even even in North Berwick here where we live, if you look around, there are some seriously good athletes just hiding away in town here who will. Occasionally you see them when you're out running on the beach or on the road somewhere when they come blasting past you. So.
Yeah, I've had plenty of people blast past me. Just moving a little bit into sort of what sort of challenges that you might have overcome, and what have you learned during that time?
I actually quite a number of things. Actually, one of the things that I probably accidentally did right quite early on in the when I started long distance running was going to see a biomechanics coach. So I think I've mentioned this to you before. So I'd in the past, every time I usually was running longer time, I'd inevitably have injuries creep up, and then you're off, not doing anything for months while you get your knees sorted out or something else sorted out. A few years ago, I ended up doing a little course with a biomechanics coach in Edinburgh, Matt Holland, and improved my running. And he basically just straightened out things. So it's like just somebody taking a look at you and taking a look at your form and your gait, figuring out things that you were doing wrong. It seems kind of obvious when you look at it, that you could work those things out yourself, but it's difficult. He just, spotted a few things I was doing, straightened me out. So I was, running with better form, and I know the things to watch for now, to make sure I don't lapse back into any kind of like old man stooped running with your, with your backside sticking out too far or your legs swinging out, all those kind of things that go wrong. And I just don't get injuries. I just have been, I'd have been super lucky, or just holding on to these few thoughts has made a difference. But I don't think I've had anything in years that I would have classed as an injury that puts you out of action.
So what are you thinking as you're running? Like, what are the key things you're looking out for or focusing on as you're running?
So I had a particular problem that was not a problem, but the one thing I had that was going on was I had a little asymmetry in my upper body action. So I had a left arm and shoulder that was perfectly nice and straight, and a right arm that crossed across my body. So it looked a bit asymmetric. And you'd think that wouldn't make much difference, but actually that was causing me to, have a little spine twist and then flicking my leg out on one side and things. So all I have to do is concentrate. And I know the problem is just one shoulder's a little lower than the other. So all I have to do is focus on keeping, if I get tired, focus on keeping my right arm going straight. So that it's just nice. It's just like, it's one thing to think about. If I can keep that straight, then everything else gets in line behind it. But that's the one that I worry about, thinking if I let that go, then everything else, falls apart behind it. So,
yeah, it's amazing that you start from your shoulder rather than, say, the ground up and looking at your feet or ankles and then coming up way. It's that downstream works.
Yeah, and I think that was the advantage of having a biomechanics coach looking at you and figuring that out for you, or physios look. I mean, actually, I'm a big fan of going to the physio when you haven't got a problem. I like going to the physio, for like a local physio that I see, every once in a while, basically for preventative maintenance. Book in for a sports massage, and in the course of that, then you're getting a little bit of, you've got somebody looking at you saying, no, actually this is really tight. This is really tight. You need to work on stretching here, or things that might be a problem. And the preventative maintenance is worth it. I was thinking, those a little bit of money spent on preventative maintenance like that is worth way more than spending hundreds on your shoes, right?
Yeah. What sort of little exercises and tips are you learning from that then? Have you got something to follow, or is it that just each time they tell you, oh, you should be doing more of this?
It's usually each time it's a reminder. So I don't go into. I'm actually probably really bad for not doing enough. Same as probably 90% of us not doing enough stretching. Not doing enough of those things. And you try to do it. When it fits in. I don't have a set plan on that, but yeah, I think going to the physio and having them just give you little reminders and saying, okay, go and work on this, otherwise you're going to have a problem. It's just little reminders once in a while. So it's a thing, like I say, things you should know, but sometimes you just need somebody else to tell you, right?
Yeah. How does strength and conditioning fit into your training then? Is there weight training that you're doing, or is there just sort of, is that non-existent? What does that look like for you?
No, that hasn't. It's pretty non-existent. Yeah, I do a little bit of. I get out on the bike. I liked a bit of road cycling as well. So I do that, but I haven't done any strength and conditioning. Actually, a couple of times when I set out to run longer ultras, so last year I ran the West Highland Way, right? So that was a goal for me.
Wow.
with that race. So that's whatever it is, 95 miles and 13,000 feet, and there's a lot of uphill, a lot downhill. You have to do a bit more work on that. So I had again, I went back to my friend Matt for a bit of advice on that, and he'll tell you things that you got to do. So things rather than just going out and pounding the roads, doing lots of miles. He was the one who kind of said, yeah, you're going to have to do some other things here. You have to do lots more hill training, lots more, and even some upper body exercises just to strengthen your shoulders, which surprised me.
Okay.
But he would actually say that, yeah, if you're out for a very long time, if you're going to be out for, 10 hours or 20 hours or something just running, at some point, your back and shoulders are going to start hurting as bad as your legs. So if you've paid no attention to them and making sure that they're strong enough, then that's going to get you first. And he was right. And one I did that in a 12-hour race, and it was 100% right. Somewhere right on 10 hours, you start getting like really, sharp pains in your shoulders and other things that you could deal with easily if you put a bit of time into it ahead of time. But
yeah, sure. I mean, the West Highland Way is definitely on the bucket list to do. I know one of the other guys in the group as well is keen to do it. So perhaps we'll try and it's a ballot process for those that are listening. So you'll have to try and get in each year and just be ready to go when you do it. I think for myself as well, that strength and conditioning side, being a background in rugby, has served me quite well in being strong for running. I'm not your typical runner. But in terms of the West Highland Way, tell us a little bit more about the magic of that race.
It was a standout experience for me. I mean, in terms of ultra running, it was just one of those things where the highs and lows in a race that long, and it's kind of unique in that it's a little different in that it's a race that starts at 1 a.m. That's already different. Getting yourself ready to hang around past midnight and start at 1 a.m. in North Glasgow and just head north, and then just keep on going. It was absolutely fascinating. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm going to say I loved every minute of it. I loved every minute of it, despite the fact that there was several hours spent running and throwing up. That's so it was.
What happened there? Tell us more about that.
Well, the difficulty is actually some of the difficulty with running for that long. The long ultras like that, you have to almost train your body how to get enough food in, how to get calories in the right way. You can't live on gels and energy drinks for 20 something hours and those things. You have to figure out how to eat and run and digest it. And that's not straightforward. And I've never done particularly well with that. And it went really badly wrong in that one. So I think, I was had stomach cramps and problems by Loch Lomond, which is a long way from Fort William.
That's a fair way feeling that bad. You managed to finish. What were you telling yourself then when you're cramping or spewing or going out the other end? What was it?
Well, it's just, I think you just kind of figure, you're kind of going along trying to figure out, it's a lot goes on trying to work out what you're going to do about it, how you're going to get through it, what you're going to do, what you're going to eat at the next, aid station, things like that. And then the nice thing about West Highland Way race is it's one where from halfway your support team can join you. So your support, you can have a support runner go with you. And I had a friend of mine from the local running group here, who was the primary support group. And then when he joined me, when he came on, he was brilliant. He was fantastic at just figuring out how to get you, working out where you're at and getting you past it. So when it was, and you need somebody like that who, can do that, can figure out what, whether you're really saying you want to quit, which I didn't, but, you'll get that where you just say, oh, I've had enough, I'm giving up now. And your support guy then has to figure out whether you really mean that or whether to, or whether to push you on, and he was very, he worked out, without telling me, he worked out some really interesting strategies to keep me going forward. So.
What were they? What were those strategies?
Well, so for a while I was unable to run, so to begin with I was, you're walking up the hills anyway, because, just to conserve a bit of energy, and then running on the flats and the downhills. And I hit a point where I couldn't run on the flat without getting nauseous, and throwing up. So we're just walking on the flats, and then you're losing a lot of time when you're just walking for miles. And Des had a little plan there where he would ended up walking and just would start walking faster than I could. So he was 20 yards up the road from me, just annoyingly far away that you're thinking, all right, I can't stop because he's getting away from me and he's not looking back. And then I'd have to break into a jog to try and catch up with him. And when I caught up with him, he'd start running, So we'd end up just saying, okay, well, I'm doing, it's like, well, you managed to run and catch up with me, so let's just keep going. We'd go a little bit further like that, and then kind of got through it. But you do, in a race that length, it's fascinating that you go through ups and downs. Like I had, sections of it for hours where I felt really grim, and then all of a sudden you'd recover a bit, and you can continue on and start running again. You feel fine, and then it goes again. So it's mentally absolutely fascinating.
What's the self-talk like when you're really hurting and maybe there's no one around? What are you telling yourself at that point?
I don't really have any. I never have any battles of thinking I'm going to give up. I think it's more analytical than that. You never particularly feel like you're despairing or anything. There's pain involved, and then there's a little bit of it's more of a strategy of thinking, how am I going to do this, or where's the what am I going to have to change, and not letting thinking of ways to not let yourself get disappointed, because that's worse. If you're disappointed in yourself, or if you set yourself goals that you're not hitting, and you go a bit black because you're falling behind plan. But you just have to figure ways to change it. You change your I usually try to figure out how to change your objectives, not be afraid to change your plan. Otherwise it's not enjoyable if you're just cursing yourself the whole way. So
did you have a pretty strict race plan?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes, I went into that one with a plan of trying to get under. At one point, I thought, getting under 20 hours, completing it in under 20 hours was going to be the plan. That changed. That became a plan of 21 hours, and then later on, it became a plan of 22 hours. I went into it with a plan and a bit of pacing in mind to do that, but you just have to be prepared to change. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it because it will change. So
what sort of advice would you give?
I think I would say, go into a race with a plan. Go into a place, with an event. You don't actually need to call it a race, because sometimes you just better call it an event and saying that you're just trying to complete it. Go in with a plan, so that you don't go off too fast. The race last weekend, the John Muir Way Ultra last weekend, so I went in with a particular pace in mind, and so the young woman that I ended up running with was on the same pace, and we watched a bunch of guys going past us early on, and thought, all right, they're not going to stick. That's way too fast for that many people to be in front of us. And sure enough, a lot of them come back to you. So I would say make a realistic pace plan to begin with and stick to it. Don't go herring off too quickly because you get overexcited. But more than that, I'd say don't be afraid to reassess and change your plan at any time, because once you make a new plan, it's enjoyable again because you're already ahead of it, right? But yeah, I've done that a few times. I actually had a really interesting one 2 years ago. I did the Glasgow to Edinburgh ultra, which is like 90 kilometers, and it's a different thing again because it's along the canal paths, so it's dead flat. Dead flat for 90k is it's excruciating for that. It's way worse than going up and downhill. And I had a plan for pacing that, and then somewhere 2/3 of the way into that, I was off plan and wasn't going to make it. I was trying to get under 9 hours, and I was behind it, and I was actually just getting disappointed and angry with myself about the fact that I was off plan and I couldn't fix it. And then at that point, my young daughter called me. So I had my headphones on, or my headphones behind my ears. She called me, and I had this little phone conversation with her. And she'd been watching she'd been dot watching on her iPad at home to see where I was. And she'd called me up excitedly to tell me that what place I was in. And all of a sudden, the plan changed. The plan wasn't about time. The plan was, okay, can you get any more places up the field? and I couldn't see anybody in front of me. But she was calling me up, giving me like race reports, saying, "Well, the next guy 400 yards ahead of you, just round the next corner, there's a guy ahead of you. He's number such and such. His name's Kevin. Go find him."
Oh, nice one. Whereabouts did you place on that one?
Like 20th or something, I think, in the end. But it became big, just changing your plan made it an enjoyable experience again. I was, intent on catching Kevin, and then she'd call me back and tell me who the next guy was, and so on, and just spent, had fun, and it was instant change. It was instant change from feeling just a bit disappointed and fed up with the whole thing to just, enjoying it again. So.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's a pretty good strategy, I guess. Is there any other advice around training? Maybe let's say you've got a dad who's trained before or been in running before or been in other sports, and he's had young children and he's maybe fallen off the wagon. What would you tell him about starting?
I would, interesting. I would say, I always thought the most important thing with training was, particularly with your kids around, like say, is trying to figure out how to get a training plan that is not, going to make everybody annoyed at you. Everybody around you at home annoyed at you. You have to, adapting your plan. Like you could easily, I had one year for one of these like 12-hour ultras where I went to a very rigid plan of thinking, right, I'm going to follow the plan of, I'm running, a long run every Saturday and Sunday morning, like really, like 5-hour run on a Saturday and a 3-hour run on a Sunday, and do that every weekend. And that got old quite quickly, so there were times in that where my wife was kind of like, yeah, is that your last big training run? Because we've kind of done with this, that's of you being AWOL every weekend morning. So those things are tough. When you make yourself a rigid plan, I would say find your times when you can do it, that it's not impacting everybody else too badly. Like actually, lunchtimes at work were always the best for me. Running, just getting in 10K at lunchtime at work, because that doesn't affect your family. If you're sneaking off, then no one, they're not missing you. And then picking your times at home to do it, and then realizing that you don't actually need to be doing, huge distances all the time. Doing long distances, now and then to just remind yourself you can do it. But more than that, it's just time on your feet. So you'd equally well served by going, if you go out early on a Saturday morning and do 20K, go out at 6 o'clock in the morning and do 20K, and you're back home before anybody in your family is really missing you. But then the important thing is just to stay on your feet the rest of the day. Just get straight back out and play with the kids or go cycling or do something. Don't just, sit down and watch rugby for the afternoon because you're tired, right? Just keep moving, stay on your feet. That's as important a training thing as running is, for ultra runs is just stay on your feet, keep moving. So.
Yeah, I think when I was training for mine, I did that by default. I did do my run in the morning, and then I'd go take the kids to the park, and I wouldn't actually sit down. Then I'd realized when I started clicking it with my watch, I'd done 10, 11 kilometers of walking well as my 20K run. So yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah. Well, we'll just change tack a little bit. We're almost ready to wrap up. Is there any sort of last things you want to say or bring up about your journey? Anything you want to tell the listener?
I think it's just that, I am thoroughly enjoying it. I think that's the thing I would say about it. I mean, I'm enjoying it not for the achievement of trying to win races or anything like that. You don't feel like you need to be at the pointy end of races or get yourself back to that sort of thing. I mean, it's a little bit addictive, and it's addictive trying to do different achievements, find different things to do. But actually, I like it from the fact that if you get yourself to a point where you're daily running is an enjoyable part of your day. That's what you'll get to. That's the reward for training for ultras, as you suddenly find out that I'd rather do a run with the dog than a walk. You just go do that every. But we're out in the morning, and those just become a matter of course because you're fit enough to do that, and that's the payback from it for sure. That you can do that without any. You've accidentally got yourself to a point where you can do that. So.
Yeah. What's the next big goal or big, hairy, audacious goal? I like to say.
Oh, I've signed up for a backyard ultra this year. That's just quite interesting for me. That's the one where you just do. It's not for everybody because it's just it's a bit. It's probably mentally tricky. This is the one where you do it's a loop ultra again, where you have to complete. I think it's like a 4.17 mile loop in an hour, and then you just keep doing that every hour until everybody but one drops out. So the idea is it's indeterminate how long it is. So it's when so everybody lines up at the start, at the beginning, and then whenever you fail to make it to the end of a lap in an hour, or you fail to make it back to the start line because you're too knackered for the next hour, then you drop out, and then you just keep going until. And I'm quite intrigued as to. I'm looking forward to the. To the kind of mental battle of figuring out what's going to happen if you're like a day and a half into that. What if you made it that far, and you're still having to light every hour?
What do you aim for something in that, or you just have an open mind as in how long you'll go for?
I think you have to have an open mind because you could you could end up having, like I say, if you had a stomach problem in that, then that could be tricky. Or if you had if you have a leg problem, it's just nicely done the distance such that you couldn't walk it in an hour. So you'd have to, if you fail to run for some reason, or at least run some of it, then you're stuffed. So, and then you don't know how, like say, manage to get through a 24-hour race without any sleep because it's 24 hours. But I think there's going to be a little mental challenge with thinking, what if this goes on for 2 days? I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've seen a couple of the backyard ones. Which one are you going to aim at?
I'm doing one over in Belgium, actually. I have a brother who lives in Brussels, so it's an excuse to go visit him, and he's going to come and crew, and come and be support crew. So, so it's an excuse to head over there in early May. That'll be fun. I'll let you know how it goes.
Brilliant. Well, any last closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, just to say thanks for the opportunity of sharing these experiences. I hope other people are in your gang are getting out there and getting excited by it. I mean, I think the ultra running now is just a fabulous thing. It's seems to me like it's so different from just road running, and there's so many different ways of doing it. It's that was a surprise for me. Was it's not just all about different distances. You can even I'm not tempted yet by the really hardcore ones of the guys who do the distance challenge, the time based challenges on a track. That's different creatures. See that running. There are some pretty good runners around here who are good at that, at running 24 hours going around a 400-meter track as many times as you can. I mean, that's a different. Don't think I'll do that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't think that's my one either.
No. But you never know. You never know. You might have guys out there who look at it thinking, oh yeah, I could do that. So that's
Yeah. Well, Roger, I must say thank you very much. I have been super inspired to tackle a few more events this year, and I'll be chasing you maybe in a couple of them. You'll be far ahead, but I'll keep working hard to try and catch up. But yeah, very much thank you for jumping on and taking the time for speaking with us. For you, the listener, Make sure you check out the link in the bio to join the Ultra Dad community, and you'll have more guys like Roger inside there supporting you to reach your goals. So, Roger, thank you very much again, and thank you, the listener, and we'll have a great day. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.